Getting you ready for game time. Join me, Sal from Behind Your Basketball, as I announce play-by-play. Make sure to smash the like and subscribe, because now we're about to go live. Entering the pregame, we now present Sal from Behind Your Basketball. And what's good, everyone? Happy Selection Sunday. Glad to have you guys on the stream this afternoon, as we will have the full bracket starting off in approximately 42 minutes from now. But going to get into some of these teams here before I start off the brackets. Decided to start off like 45 minutes early so I can get into some of these teams, break it down. And this is kind of fluid right now. So how my bracket graphic is, Region 2, top right, Midwest. That might be changing very soon. Michigan is trailing against Purdue 70-63 with under 3 minutes left to go. So that region there, we might have to swap the Midwest for the West. That would move Arizona up to the second best 1 seed, and then would drop down Michigan to the third best 1 seed. And the top 3 teams in the bracket, I'll go to the 1 seeds in just a moment, just dominating the competition this year, all with 2 losses. Michigan potentially could pick up their 3rd loss, though, based on how this game's going against Purdue. Purdue shooting 3 at the free throw line right now, going 1 for 2 in their first 2. If you guys are doing the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Glad to be back in once again this year's March Madness tournament. And if you guys would like to join in on this year's March Madness Tournament Challenge group, feel free to do so. That link is pinned in the description to the Behind Your Basketball Bracket Challenge group link once again. But glad to have you guys back all on the channel once again. We got Joe, welcome back in, bud. Lucas, Dale, Gamer on the channel, welcome in. Anastasia, thanks for joining in. So 1 seeds are going to look like this. Duke's looking like they're going to be the overall number 1. ACC tournament champions last night, 32-2 overall. Able to squeak out a win against Virginia last night. Cameron Boozer, National Player of the Year candidate, front runner right now, put it up a humongous season. 22.5 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game on over 4 assists per game, shooting 56.5% from the floor and around 41% from three-point range. They have 17 quad 1 wins, which is the most wins out of any team in the bracket, and they have wins over Michigan and Florida, who are both projected to be 1 seeds alongside Duke. So 1 seeds, there's a consensus on the 4 1 seeds. So it's not like some of the years where we've had like a battle between the final 1 seed or like potentially a couple 2s that could move up to a 1. This year there's a constant like 4 teams that's going to be 1 seeds that everybody's totally agreed upon for bracketologists. And then it depends now. Michigan as the second 1 seed in the top right region. That's what I have here. I might have to change this in a couple minutes if they do lose. They're 31-2. 1 win behind Duke. If they do come from behind, win this Big Ten tournament game with 2 minutes left, so they're trailing by 9, they would tie the same record as Duke for the season, but they're on the verge of being 31-3 right now for Michigan at the moment. Arizona won yesterday against Houston, Big 12 tournament championship. They're 16-2 in quad 1 games. They've had a phenomenal season for Tommy Lloyd's squad. They're going to be a 1 seed. Wins over Florida, Houston, UConn, and Iowa State in the AP poll. Those are the 4, 5, 6, and 7 teams going into last week's AP poll. And then UConn had held that 1 seed for a while, and then last week Florida came and jumped past UConn and bounced UConn down to a 2 seed, even though Florida got throttled yesterday against Vandy in the SEC semis. Should be enough for Florida, body of work to get them to the 1 seed for the final 1 seed for the defending national champions. Florida had a 12-game winning streak before it got snapped against Vanderbilt yesterday. Big win by Vandy yesterday, 91-74, but 12-6 in quad 1 games for Florida. 4th most quad 1 wins behind Duke, Michigan, and Arizona. That should put Florida into the driver's seat for the final 1 seed. If you're doing the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell as well. And feel free to join in throughout the tournament, hoping to cover some of the live streams, play-by-play for some of the tournament games. Actual bracket will be revealed starting at 6 o'clock tonight. So Selection Sunday brackets, it will be started at 6 o'clock tonight. Michigan has cut it down to 7 against Purdue. 72-65 when 1:39 left to go. Michigan just came up with a monster block at the rim, erased 2 points away from Purdue. Wow, first time for the tournament since 21 for Ian. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I got that poll up there too. Auburn, Miami of Ohio. I'll break down that in a little bit. Gonna get to the bubble now with got a gigantic bubble. It's been a rough bubble this year. A lot of teams on the bubble with a bunch of losses. Like a lot of people saying that this is like the worst bubble that we've seen potentially in the history of the March Madness tournaments. St. Louis, they're an interesting team. I'll start off for them on the bubble. I'll go from like projected 9s to 10s to 11s, and then teams that's like borderline cutoff, playing teams, and then teams that are out. But interesting case here for the first bubble team out of like multiple, probably around 10 to 15 that I'm going to discuss here leading up to the top of the hour. St. Louis, a projected 9 seed by both ESPN and CBS. And yeah, they legit saved themselves against George Washington in that tournament quarters. Came back and won. They were down by double digits, but they're struggling. They're only 4-4 in their last 8 games, limping into the tournament. And their wins aren't really signature compared to like other teams on the bubble, but they don't have those opportunities since they're an A10 program. So they do have a win over Santa Clara and VCU. They should be a 9 seed. That's what they're projected for them, but a lot of wavering bracketology seeding out there for them. And late stretch of the season, they did suffer some bad losses. They have a bad loss at URI last month, lost to George Mason in the final game of the regular season by 29, and then they went 0-2 against Dayton and lost in the regular season and lost in the tournament semis by 1, and then a loss to Stanford by 1 in non-conference play. So yeah, right now, limping into the tournament for them, projected as a 9 seed. Another mid-major, Santa Clara, brought up here in the chat quite a bit, Steve Nash, and Santa Clara back in 93. Santa Clara going to be an interesting seed for them as well. I was looking at ESPN. Joe Lunardi has Santa Clara predicted as a 10, projected as an 11 in the play-in by Jerry Palma CBS. And those 2 wins they're holding on are against St. Mary's. So they beat St. Mary's twice, and those 2 wins are helping them out a ton, but they just couldn't beat Gonzaga. They lost 3 straight games and got swept against Gonzaga, and also a quad 4 loss against Loyola Chicago early on in the season. Lost that game by 2, but I mean, that's tough for the resume. A loss to Arizona State, then they got throttled against New Mexico, which is another team that's on the bubble that's probably not going to make it in like the first 4 out grouping for New Mexico. So Those two St. Mary's victories, that's huge for Santa Clara. 26-8, 15-3 in the WCC. Interesting seeding case with them, whether they'll be a 10, whether they'll be an 11, what will be the case for them if they do get sent for the play-in for Santa Clara. But them and St. Louis are like the two mid-majors that are on the bubble alongside with all the Power 5 schools. VCU was on the bubble until 2 hours or like an hour ago or so. VCU, congratulations for them. They won the A10 tournament championship, so they're an automatic lock into the tournament. Gonna look at some of the Power 5 schools here on the bubble. NC State is one of them. 20-13, 10-8 in the ACC. Projected both as a 10 seed in ESPN and CBS for Lunardi and Palm. But another team that's struggling, just like St. Louis, limping into the tournament, going backwards in the bracket. They're just 2-7 in their last 9 games for NC State, and they have a quad 4 loss, which hurts them terribly. They lost against Georgia Tech, who's 11-20 this season. So that's a tough loss. They lost in overtime to Notre Dame. Lost against Seton Hall, which was a team that got out to a great start. Then all of a sudden the wheels fell off second part of the season. But then they do have some pretty good wins on their resume. Beat North Carolina, won against Clemson, beat VCU, which VCU winning the A10 certainly helps out the case for NC State. 1 point win against SMU, who's basically same case, could be a first 4 play-in team for SMU. And then another win against Virginia Tech, which is just outside the bracket. Those wins should be able to help out North Carolina State into the bracket. Texas A&M, another team on the bubble, 21-11, 11-7 in the SEC, projected as a 10 seed by both ESPN and CBS. Solid win against Kentucky for Texas A&M. They beat Georgia by 15, beat Auburn by 2, but they got throttled against Oklahoma State, 87-63, lost to Oklahoma by 20 in the conference tournament. So going backwards for them recently. All losses to teams either in the bubble or in the tournament. So they don't have any terrible losses for Texas A&M. Should be enough to get them in. 5-8 in quad 1, 4-3 in quad 2, and then perfect in quads 3 and 4. They're 15-0 in quads 3 and 4, whereas NC State has that horrific loss to Georgia Tech. Texas A&M doesn't have any bad losses, and they're 21-11. NC State's 20-13. So it should be enough for sure to get A&M into the bracket. UCF, that's another team that's completely crumbled recently. Projected as a 10 seed, but second half of the season they completely are just limping into the tournament. 4-7 in their previous 11, 1-4 in their last 5. And what's helping them is that they have a win against Texas Tech with JT Toppin playing in that game on January 31st. They have a couple really solid wins for UCF that's helping them out. They beat Kansas, they beat Texas Tech with JT Toppin. They won on the road at BYU by 13. They beat TCU, which TCU has been moving up recently. So they have some really solid wins. And then they have a couple of tough losses against teams that's not in the brackets, that is like below the bubble, below them. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Cincinnati, those 3 teams below, not going to make the tournament, but it's not like they have any terrible losses for UCF. What's good? Deshaun in the street, welcome in. Yes, South Florida, hoping to get to them in a little bit for one of the teams, but I think potentially that they could bring some magic to the bracket as a dangerous 11 seed for South Florida. Hey, we got Jeff here. Welcome back in, bud. Hope all is going well. Bracket reveal going to start in around half an hour from now. Michigan trailing against Purdue, losing by 9. So I think I'm going to have to change that region. So it's looking like Arizona is going to be across from Duke in the West. Michigan puts it up and through. They scored. They're down by 7 now. Missouri, another team that's on the bubble. One of my coworkers, big fan of Mizzou, 20-12, 10-8 in the SEC, and they're going to be sweating it out today for Mizzou. Projected as an 11 seed by Joe Lunardi at ESPN. They're a play-in team according to Jerry Palm of CBS, and their net ranking is not good. They're number 58 in the net, KenPom rating of 52, 5-7 in quad 1, 4-5 in quad 2, perfect in quads 3 and 4, 3-0 in quad 3, 8-0 in quad 4. So they don't have any like terrible losses, but they do have losses against Notre Dame and LSU. So those are their worst losses, but what they're holding on to is wins over Florida, Tennessee, Vandy, A&M, and Oklahoma. All those big-time wins, especially the Florida one, when you beat a 1 seed when you're in a bracket. I mean, that's huge. That should help out Mizzou, that win against Florida. And, yeah, it should be enough for them to get into the tournament. Tough loss against Kentucky in their first round SEC tournament game. Hung in against Kentucky, but should be enough when they're beating high-caliber teams to get them into the brackets. And then here's going to bring up this case right now. So I got it posted in the posted as a poll right now up on the screen. And congratulations to Purdue. Purdue just won. So Purdue knocks off Michigan. Michigan picks up loss number 3 this season. And wow, that's a big-time win for Purdue. Congratulations to Purdue, the Big Ten tournament champions. Yeah, I don't think many people saw that coming. Purdue was limping into the bracket. So that should move Arizona across from Duke. So Michigan suffers their 3rd loss of the season. Arizona wins the Big 12 tournament championship last night. That should put Arizona in the driver's seat now as the 2nd number 1 seed behind Duke. But yeah, consensus top 3 teams in the bracket between Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. It's been like that for a long time this season. Michigan was crushing the competition this year. Yeah, we're going to be live with a selection show bracket reveal in around 25 minutes from now. Can't show the screen due to copyright, but once the teams get picked, going to be filling them out, or filling out the brackets by the numbers. They're out here. And we got like 80+ people watching. If you guys are new in the stream, smash the thumbs up. Hit that like. Helps out a ton. Find this video on YouTube. Make sure to hit the subscribe as well. So in the poll, I get the question there between who will make the tournament between these two. A lot of controversy between 31-1 Miami, Ohio, who plays nobody, or Auburn, which went 17-16. Now, there's never been a team with 16 losses to make the bracket, ever. 15-loss teams have happened 4 times in the history of the tournament. 27 Vanderbilt, 2018 Alabama, 2019 Florida. Last year, Texas got sent to the play-in as a 15-loss team. And Miami, Ohio wins the regular season championship, going a perfect 31-0 out in the MAC, and then they lose the quarterfinal round of the MAC tournament against UMass. The writing was on the wall for Miami, Ohio, and they were winning close game after close game, playing one of the easiest schedules in America. They played 10 games determined by 6 points or fewer. They went 4-0 in overtime, and then they had 3 victories against non-division opponents from NAIA programs. They played 0 Power 5 schools. They played 0 Quad 1 games. They were 3-0 in Quad 2, a 10-0 in Quad 3, 15-1 in Quad 4 with a loss to UMass in the MAC quarters, and their metrics ratings are not good based on everybody else in the bracket. Net ranking is 64, which is well below everybody else, which a large majority of the bubble teams are like around the 40s or early 50s. And then their KenPom rating is back at 93. The luck rating on KenPom has them at 15 because they've played so many close games against one of the easiest schedules in the nation. So it is so difficult to win 31 games and run the table going perfect in the regular season, but you have 3 freebies against non-division opponents, so you're basically going into the tournament with a record of 28-1. For Miami, Ohio, when you beat teams like Indiana University East, Trinity Christian, and then Milligan University, 3 NAIA programs, non-division schools. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. In my opinion, I think they're going to get sent to the playing game. It'd be pretty funny if they get sent to the playing game and face Auburn. If that does happen, Auburn's going to smash this Miami, Ohio team. I'm going to go over Auburn now. 17-16, 7-11 in the SEC. They've limped down the stretch. They're just 3-9 in their last 12 games. No team has ever made the bracket with 16 losses as an at-large, but you look at the wins, you look at the profile for Auburn. They beat Florida at Florida 76-67. They won against St. John's in non-conference action. They beat Kentucky by 1. They smashed Arkansas and won by 22 against the conference tournament champs in the SEC. They beat Texas, who is probably going to be in that play-in round as well. And then a couple tough losses. They lost to Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Ole Miss one doesn't really hurt. Look what they did in the conference tournament as a 15 seed. Came up just short against Arkansas. And they were about to bust brackets if they did make it in and win the SEC tournament, get past Arkansas for Ole Miss. But the loss against Mississippi State, that was a tough one. Regular season loss to the 15 seed Ole Miss. Tough one as well. And, I mean, it'd be pretty funny for Auburn and Miami, Ohio to face off, but I think it's going to be tough now based on the body of work that a couple of teams have done. Oklahoma, for example, being one of them at 18-14. I would take Oklahoma above Auburn. Oklahoma is playing their mind out right now. Auburn is actually in the first 4 out grouping, second team out behind Oklahoma, and then CBS has Auburn in the first 4 out behind San Diego State and then Oklahoma. So they're like the second team or third team out of the bracket for Auburn. I'm going to go over Oklahoma next. Oklahoma, they're 19-15 now. So Oklahoma's 19-15. They were terrible to begin the SEC slate. I think they were something like 1-9 in the conference. And ESPN's got them as a first team out, CBS second team out behind SDSU, but they've been playing out in their minds. If Oklahoma gets the shot to be in the tournament, they could do some damage control in the bracket for them. They have a solid win against Vandy. They beat Georgia, beat Mizzou, beat Texas, beat A&M. All those teams either in the bracket on the bubble. Started off at 11-12, 1-9 in the conference. They're 8-3 in their previous 11 games for Oklahoma. And they don't have any bad losses. They're 2-0 in Quad 3, 2-0 in Quad 4, 6-5 in Quad 2, 4-10 in Quad 1. Auburn's 4-13 in Quad 1, so should put Oklahoma above Auburn to make the bracket, plus how Oklahoma's been playing well. Question is are they going to be put in over Texas, which Texas is struggling. That could determine the bracket. Who goes to the first round in Dayton, the first 4, either Tuesday or Wednesday. It's between the Longhorns and the Sooners. Texas 1-5 in their previous 6. That win on the road against Texas A&M in that grouping of games, that might have saved them, but they do have some bad losses. They lost against Arizona State, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Oklahoma's bad losses, Arizona State, Mississippi State, South Carolina. That's a tough one, too, when you lose against South Carolina, who was having a rough season. Texas, out of the grouping, has a win against Alabama, Vandy, Georgia, Mizzou. Also beat Oklahoma 79-69. That could be the difference maker there, is that win against Oklahoma for Texas. Even though Texas has been struggling, Oklahoma's been playing their minds out recently. If Oklahoma gets the shot at the brackets, they could be a dangerous 11 seed if they get put in. There's been years past where they've been like the first team out, and unfortunately I think that's potentially what it could end up being today, is that Oklahoma could be the first team out, Texas could be the first team in. That's what Joe Lunardi has for ESPN, so we shall see. 18-14 for Texas, Oklahoma 19-15. Conference record of difference as well, 9-9 in the SEC for Texas, Oklahoma at 7-11. Louisville right now projected as a 6. So that's what I've seen from Louisville. They're projected as a 6, it looks like, for them. If you guys are doing a stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Going to be starting off in around 20 minutes from now, and keep on smashing the thumbs up here. We have 100+ people watching, but not many people smashing the thumbs up, so make sure to be a part here, and come on back for the future live streams on the channel. And also join the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group. That link is pinned in the chat. All are welcome to join. Be a part this year's Bracket Challenge group. Next bubble team, SMU at 20-13, 9-9 in the ACC. Joe Lunardi's got them as an 11 seed play-in team for Jerry Palm of CBS. Pretty solid net ranking at number 37. They're 4-9 in Quad 1, 5-4 in Quad 2. They don't have any bad losses, 11-0 in the quad groupings between 3 and 4. Their worst losses have come against Quad 2 opponents, so these games are on the road for them. These games are on the road at Syracuse, at Cal, at Stanford, and then against LSU. So those are the worst losses for SMU. They did beat Louisville. They beat UNC by 14, beat A&M in overtime, and then they beat Florida State, which Florida State was another team who could have done damage if they got into the bracket on a similar scale of Oklahoma. 2 late risers, and unfortunately couldn't win their conference tournament to get in. I'm going to type in the teams when they come up on the screen. So it's going to be released in around 18 minutes from now. So I'll go region by region, typing in the teams once they appear up on the bracket. Feel free to vote as well. I got that question out there in the poll. Who's going to make the tournament between Miami, Ohio, and Auburn? Both teams get selected right now, 42%. That's the popular vote, ahead of only Miami, Ohio will be selected. That's 1 point shy, 41%. And both teams do not make the bracket. That's very limited on the vote right now. In last place, only 5%. Only Auburn will get selected. That's at 11% currently. Going through a big-time list of bubble teams. We went through a bunch of teams on the bubble already. Did breakdowns of all these teams. Started off with 9s and 10 seeds. We started off a little while ago with St. Louis, Santa Clara, NC State. We did the breakdown between Miami, Ohio, and Auburn, Texas A&M, UCF, Mizzou, all on the bubble. And then VCU, congratulations to them. They won the A10 Tournament Championship, so they don't need to sweat it out anymore. They get an auto bid for VCU representing their conference in the conference tournament. So it looks like 2 teams from the A10, VCU, St. Louis, going to be into the bracket. Mountain West, though, looks likely they'll get 1. Years past, Mountain West, they have been lacking in the bracket. San Diego State, 2023, they made the run to the Final Four, faced UConn. But other than that, the Mountain West has been lackluster in years past. And this year, it was a mid-conference for Mountain West. Not really a lot of excellent teams out of the conference. Last couple of years, they had teams with single-digit losses. Only one of those teams this year was Utah State, which won the conference tournament championship. They were the only team with single-digit losses. Everybody else with double-digit losses. And I think that this is where there's a fine line here, that this is where the group of teams that will get left out of the tournament begins. San Diego State, 22-11. They're 14-6 in the Mountain West. They're the 3rd team out, according to Joe Lunardi at ESPN, behind Oklahoma and Auburn. CBS, Jerry Palm has San Diego State as the 1st team out. What they're holding on to is a win against Utah State, though they're 1-2 against Utah State. They're 2-1 against New Mexico, which is on the bubble right behind San Diego State. But when it comes down to push and shove here between teams making the tournament, what's going against San Diego State is that they're 0-2 against Grand Canyon. They were 1 game above Grand Canyon in the conference. San Diego State went 14-6 in the Mountain West, 2nd place behind Utah State, and they're limping into the tournament, just 4-5 in their last 9 games, and they had multiple opportunities on their schedule in the non-conference slate to win games against quality opponents, but they just weren't able to do that. They also have a loss to Troy, which is a bad quad 3 loss in double overtime, so that stings. They lost against Baylor, which Baylor this year, it's weird. I will not be saying Baylor's name in the tournament field this year. They were mid this year. They went 16-16 for the overall average season for a team, as average as you can get there for a C-grade season for Baylor. So a 10-point loss for San Diego State against Baylor. I think it's going to be tough for them to make the bracket for San Diego State. And I think it's going to be even tougher for New Mexico, who is behind San Diego State one game in the Mountain West to make the bracket as well. New Mexico went 1-2 against San Diego State. They went 0-2 against Utah State, so it shows that they have struggled against higher quality opponents. They do have a win over Santa Clara by a large consideration, and a tie for third in the Mountain West with a 13-7 record. So that conference record being from like a mid-major conference, I feel like that's just too low to get them into the tournament. And then outside of that, there's long shot teams probably not going to make it to the bracket at all. I don't see any of these teams making it in. Indiana, just too many losses, 18-14, 1-6 in their previous 7 games. Terrible loss to close out their season against Northwestern. That basically shattered their tournament hopes. They are holding on to wins over Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, but they lost to Northwestern twice. And both of those were late in the season. I think that's going to shatter them, those 2 losses against Northwestern just outside the bracket. Cal and Stanford, both of those teams were hanging in the field for quite a while and then dropped down late stretch of the season. Cal 21-11, average at 9-9 in the ACC. And for Cal, they got some good wins, they got some bad losses for them. Wins over UCLA, UNC, Miami, SMU. They went 2-0 against Stanford, so Stanford shouldn't even be close to the bracket since Cal swept them this season. And then bad losses against Pitt, Syracuse, K-State. They got swept against Florida State. So the automatic seesaw there with Cal. Better record than most at-large teams. They're 21-11, but just a seesaw between who they've beat and who they've lost against. And then Stanford, 20-12, 9-9 in the ACC. Worse metrics than Cal. Get swept against Cal. And yeah, you can't make the tournament when you've lost to teams like Seattle, UNLV, and Notre Dame, Wake Forest, and swept against Cal. So yeah, I see those teams being long shots. Even more long shots will be Cincinnati and Seton Hall. Unfortunate for Seton Hall. They were ranked like 2 months ago. Started off at 14-2, 7-8 in their last 15 games. Haven't gone on a winning streak in over a month. They're 0-7 against top 3 teams in the Big East, getting swept against Villanova, UConn, St. John's. So 0 signature wins in their conference. That's going to be tough to be in this field. But yeah, that's what they have. Just went through the bubble. I'm going to go through sleeper teams here. Yeah, I'll go through a brief breakdown of sleeper teams. South Florida. It's going to be one of those sleeper teams. And playing with passion, playing with pride. For the South Florida team, number 8 in the country in points per game. They rank top 15 in the nation in adjusted tempo per game. And also, they're the number 1 team in the country in free throw makes and free throw attempts. They will put you in foul trouble. And if you're not a deep team, good luck against the South Florida team. They might draw a Texas Tech in the first round, which is already thin with the injury to JT Top, and that might be a worrisome matchup there, going up against South Florida, who's going to put 5 guys in double figures they average, and they get to the free throw line a ton. South Florida, a 13-point win against Utah State, and what a story it would be for them. This is their first NCAA tournament since the passing of their former head coach. And a lot of those players were on the team from 2 years ago when they went to the NIT. And they've ripped off an 11-game winning streak going into the bracket for South Florida, who won the American today. And yesterday, I watched a good chunk of that game when they won yesterday's game in their conference semis, and they were drilling threes left and right. They had 12 made threes in the win yesterday, and they've been able to win these games by double digits throughout their conference tournament, winning today 70-55 over Wichita State. Another dangerous team would be Ohio State. Like, they're probably going to be an 8 seed or a 7 seed. They're going to pose a big-time threat to a 1 seed for them. There's no way this team's playing like an 8 seed right now. They're number 8 in overall efficiency for the last month for Ohio State in the country. They're 4-1 in their previous 5 games. Their only loss in that grouping was the Big Ten quarters by 2 possessions against Michigan. And they have a key leader on their team. Bruce Thornton has started 135 career games. He's averaging 20 points per game, a 4-year starter for Ohio State. And this is a team that could be a sleeper team in the bracket that could have potential, depending on the matchup, to eliminate a 1 or a 2 seed in round 2 for them. I think either way, whoever they face, either it's a 7-10 matchup, 8-9 seed, they're going to have no problem, in my opinion, getting past whoever they play against in that first round matchup. Arkansas looks like a real big-time sleeper that's going to do damage control. Arkansas projected this morning as a 5. They should move up to a 4 for Arkansas. But, man, Darius Acuff Jr., I mean, he is balling out. 30 points today. Big-time conference tournament. Putting up around 23 points per game. They're 10-2 now in their last 12. Arkansas, year after year after year, they pull off upsets in the tournament. Pig Suey constantly does it. They did this before this decade. They knocked off Kansas in the second round in an 8-1 matchup a few years back. They beat Gonzaga and stunned the world a couple years ago. So they've been the team to eliminate 1 seeds. They're going to be either a 5 or a 4, and they're going to have a shot at a 1 seed in the Sweet 16. And would not shock me if Arkansas does it again, because they're playing out of their minds. I see them that they could go on a deep run for Arkansas. The size and the length of that team, and Darius Acuff, just the ability to take over games. I mean, they look really good right now for the Hogs. UCLA playing pretty good as well, projected as a 7 seed. And they've gone with a small ball lineup for them recently, but their numbers popping off as of late. They're 6-2 in their last 8 games. Big win against Michigan State. Projected 2 seed in the Big Ten quarters on Friday. Mick Cronin just gets the best out of his teams in the month of March. They're built on toughness for UCLA. That's another team that could pose a threat to a 2 seed most likely in the bracket. That's where I worry if you're UConn and you get like one of these teams with a team that's struggling like UConn right now. That might be a tough matchup for them, because UCLA, everything's come together for them recently. I talked about Oklahoma being on the bubble. If they get the chance, they can do some damage control as a play-in 11 seed. It all depends if they make the tournament or not. It's going to come down to Oklahoma and Texas, in my opinion, for like the last team picked in the bracket in the play-in. But yeah, those are teams to watch out for. South Florida, Ohio State, Wisconsin, they're another one. I'll touch base on Wisconsin as well, but yeah, they're capable of taking out a 1 seed in the Sweet 16 as well, projected as a 5 or a 6. They're going to either take out a 1 or a 2 seed for Wisconsin. For them, depending if they're a 5, they'll take out a 1, 6 seed, take out a 3, and then a 2. So it all depends on seed lines for them. But 5-1 in their previous 6, narrowly lost to Michigan yesterday, and they're playing really well as of late. They have recent wins too against Illinois and Purdue, and then Purdue won the conference championship today. So yeah, those are teams to watch out for. There, Ohio State, Wisconsin, South Florida, Arkansas, UCLA, TCU. Playing pretty well as well. Yeah, Vandy is another team in that grouping. I'm really impressed what they did against Florida for for Vandy. Vandy's another team in that grouping. Some really good guards on that team for Vandy. TCU is 9-2 in their last 11. They're probably going to get a 9 for them. And they beat Iowa State in conference play. They beat Texas Tech. And I believe that was with Toppin. Still on the team for Texas Tech. So yeah, those are some of the teams to keep an eye on in this bracket. My opinion this year about the mid-majors is that just absolute chaos happened in all these conference tournaments for mid-majors. Usually there's like a good chunk of mid-majors that people spot an eye on and look into for like mid-majors that could pull off upsets, but this year it's been tough. Really tough. There's been a lot of lower seeds from mid-majors pulling through, picking up conference tournament championships. So, in my opinion, for the mid-majors, seems like it's going to be a tough year for them this year. It's all about NIL. You look at around the difference between Power 5 basketball and mid-major basketball, and you look at the growth in the last decade with a building of all these facilities, all new facilities on different campuses for Power 5 schools. The poor mid-major schools just can't keep up. A couple of schools this decade that were mid-major transferred from D1 to D3 because, unfortunately, they just could not keep up with the expenses. And it's just a totally different ballgame when you're a college athlete out there, a top recruit getting paid big bucks, millions of dollars, going to a big-time school, and they got all the resources, and then you're a smaller school, like a team that's out in the NEC or the Horizon League, and you're having a tough time keeping up, and you got teams that have to move down 2 divisions lower just to keep up. But yeah, going to have the bracket revealed around 3 minutes from now. If you're new in the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Favorite part of the year, March Madness tournament brackets, and hoping to cover some of the games for first round action for Thursday and Friday. So feel free to ring that notification bell if you want to come on back here for some of the live streams for tournament coverage, and hoping to cover the Final Four National Championship for sure this year as well. Yeah, Florida State's not going to make it. They play their hearts out in the conference tournament. Unfortunately, yeah, they're not going to make it. I think Oklahoma has a chance of making the first 4. They've been playing much better than Texas. I think it's going to come down to Oklahoma and Texas for the final spot. If Oklahoma gets the final spot, a big thank you to VCU. And Oklahoma is going to do some serious damage control. There's some really shaky teams in the brackets as well recently. Some of the teams that's shaky as of late, UConn, they're the top-seeded shaky team in my opinion. Went from a 1 seed to a 2 seed last week. 29-5 overall record, but that record in my opinion kind of inflated because the Big East has looked awful this year. And then in the last 4 games, they're 2-2. And their last 3 losses came against Creighton and a home game, Marquette, in the season finale. And then they got crushed yesterday, lost by 20 against St. John's. In this last month, they ranked 31st in efficiency rankings on Bartarvik.com. So UConn's not even in the top 30 in the last month per efficiency rankings for them. I think they're in trouble in the bracket. The Big East in general, I think, could be in trouble. St. John's, though, has been playing really good as of late. They started off slow, and they've been playing some great basketball for St. John's. They're another case, but I think between UConn and also Villanova, I think, is in some deep trouble. Lost to Georgetown in their conference tournament. I think it could be a tough tournament for those 2 teams. Also, Nebraska, they have never won a tournament game. They're 0-8 all time. They're the only Power 5 school to never win a tournament game, and they rank 97th in the Bartarvik rankings since March 1st. So last 15 days, they're almost below 100 in efficiency rankings. They started off a perfect 20-0. They're 6-6 in their last 12. So I see an early exit out of Nebraska. And any time on efficiency rankings when you're outside the top 50 in either offensive efficiency or defensive efficiency, then I think that could be an issue, and they're 55th in KenPom in total offense. Kansas has looked really shaky. Kansas most likely going to be a 4 seed or a 5 seed. They've had 3 straight exits in the first weekend for them after they won the 2022 title. Bounced out against Arkansas in 23, lost against Gonzaga 24. Last year got bounced out first round against Arkansas, and they're back at 92nd in the last month in their Bartarvik efficiency ranking, and they're only 12-7 with their current starting lineup. Here we go, bracket reveal about to begin. If you're new on the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe, as we will have the bracket reveal. The teams going down right now in the bracket. Top left corner of the screen, as we will start this thing off, and it will be, as we are getting ready to get this bracket reveal going. Just a matter of moments. Cameron Boozer, National Player of the Year. Front runner right now should be Duke. That's that top spot in the bracket. We're waiting for that to be announced. Duke, the ACC Tournament champions. And any minute from now, we will get first glimpse on the first team in the bracket. Here we go. Bracket about to begin, and it starts off with Duke. Duke, the top overall seed in this year's tournament. Cameron Boozer, double machine. They play in Greenville, South Carolina on Thursday, part of the East Region, top left corner of the brackets. Duke at 32-2 for the ACC Tournament champions. They will take on the 16 seed Siena Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Tournament champions, 23-11 this season for the Saints, just outside Albany, New York, out at Loudonville off of Route 9. Ohio State, those are one of the red-hot rising teams I talked about. They've been playing some excellent basketball as of late. Bruce Thornton, 135 career starts for the senior guard. They are the 8 seed. They take on a 9. Both of these teams red-hot as of late. TCU, the Horned Frogs, out of the Big 12, an at-large bid. That should be a tremendous matchup between two teams that are red-hot on fire. The Johnnies, Rick Pitino, going to get a 5 seed. My opinion, that's kind of low for St. John's, winning the Big East Tournament Championship for them by 20 against UConn, not moving up to the 4. They're going to face a 12. And that 12 out in San Diego, that's all the way across the country for them. Number 1 defense in the nation. We're going to have a rock fight in this matchup. That is UNI, the Northern Iowa Panthers, Missouri Valley Conference Tournament champions. Make sure to take the under on that game, and the first of 50 wins that matchup on Friday out in San Diego. Kansas gets the 4 seed in this bracket in San Diego. Kansas gonna take on the 13 seed Cal Baptist, which won past midnight yesterday, last night into early this morning in their conference tournament championship over Utah Valley. 6 seed goes to the Cards of Louisville. Pat Kelsey got his team back into the bracket. This time they're going to take on a red-hot South Florida Bulls team that could be a dangerous sleeper in this tournament, ripping off 11 straight wins out of the American. Michigan State gets a 3. Sparty gets a 3 instead of a 2 out of Buffalo. Oh, that should be an easy matchup for them. North Dakota State out of the Summit. Wow, Sparty gets a 3. That loss dropped them down to the 3. Philadelphia Friday. 7 seed UCLA. UCLA's been playing some great basketball as of late. They'll take on a 10. UCF. Oof. UCLA looking really good. UCF. Some uninspiring basketball for them, slipping down the stretch for the Knights. Getting into the bracket. That's out in Philly. 23-11 UCLA taking on 21-11 UCF. Number 2 seed on Friday. Hosts taking on the 15 UConn at the 2 line. Huskies in Philly. Out in the Northeast. UConn fans, Stores, going to be traveling to that matchup big time. Taking on the 15 seed. Usually they face a team from region. This is going to be out of region. I was thinking about LIU possibly, but no, it's going to be Furman. Usually these matchups get scheduled based on like region, but I'm going to take on the Southern Conference Tournament champions Furman. They were a 6 seed. I remember a couple of years ago, Furman. Can you believe what I just saw? They upset Virginia. Furman with a upset against Virginia a couple years back in the bracket, but that's what we have top left corner of the brackets. Andrew, thanks for the dono. Really appreciate it, brother, with a donut. We got 1K out here in the stream. Let's get that 1K hype out in the chat. If you're new in the channel, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Click the link pinned to the chat, as that's the ESPN Bracket Challenge Tournament group for my channel. Feel free to click that link. So that is the first bracket grouping down the top left corner of the brackets. The overall number 1 seed region, Duke getting the top seed in the bracket. They'll take on Siena out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and then Ohio State TCU. That should be an interesting, fascinating matchup there. That's probably going to be like a 12:15 p.m. game on CBS, I would imagine. Ohio State's been playing some excellent basketball. They're 4-1 in their last 5, only lost to Michigan in the Big Ten quarters on Friday. They beat Purdue on March 1st, the conference champions, 82-74. Ohio State ranks number 8 in the country in overall metrics during the last month. And then TCU has been playing extremely well also as of late. Yeah, I can't believe St. John's got a 5. Either way, kind of doesn't matter because they've been playing much better basketball than Kansas. Kansas has been incredibly shaky for them. They're 12-7 with their current starters. Their efficiency rankings have not been good as of late. That's going to be a rock fight against Northern Iowa. First to 50 going to win that game. But coaching of Rick Pitino, that's going to help out the St. John's squad a ton. They have been heating up as of late for St. John's. They started off struggling to begin this year, and now they've really just turned it on for St. John's, playing some excellent basketball lately. So that is the first part of the bracket. Going to get to the top right region of the West coming up in a couple moments. Yeah, that Ohio State TCU game. Grab the popcorn for that one. That should be like, man, I can't believe they put those two teams together. Ohio State, TCU. UCLA has been playing some great basketball, and UConn slipping. I'm concerned about UConn. UCLA has gone with like a small ball lineup. They're 6-2 in their last 8, and they rank just like Ohio State. Ohio State in the last month in efficiency rankings is number 5. UCLA is number 6 in their last 5 games in efficiency rankings. This UCLA team, with their head coach Mick Cronin, they've had the identity in the past to go on deep runs. That year, coming out of COVID, 11 seed play-in all the way to the Final Four. Cal Baptist upsets Kansas. Adrian puts out here. Honestly, wouldn't shock me based on how bad Kansas has been playing as of late. Wow, Lunardi didn't even have Cal State Baptist in his bracket. He had Utah Valley, so he didn't update it on the last update. Cal State Baptist is a mid-major team out of the WAC with they only have 8 losses. That's rare for a lot of mid-major teams. They have double-digit losses. Cal State Baptist 0-3 against Power 5s, lost to Colorado BYU by 31, and Utah. They did beat Oregon State, which is no longer considered a Power 5. Oregon State now playing in the West Coast Conference. That's a road win at Oregon State, which went to the conference semis for the WCC. Yeah, Cal State Baptist, 6 straight wins for them, and they were the 2 seed. They beat Utah Valley in the conference championship for their, I think it's their first ever time that they've been in the brackets. I believe I saw something that both of these teams have never been in the tournament before, between Utah Valley and Cal State Baptist. Yeah, that's a dangerous matchup. Louisville against South Florida. South Florida could be a sleeper team. Michigan State, I can't believe they got shafted picked as a 3 instead of a 2. Arizona overjumps Michigan with a loss by Michigan today. Big 12 tournament champions. Number 1 seed out in the top right region. Out in the West, Arizona playing in their region. San Diego, California on a Friday. They'll take on a 16 seed. That's going to be Long Island University. That's brutal. Going all the way across the country. LIU, outside New York City, has to take the flight all the way across the U.S. for this matchup against Arizona. Number 8 seed, Villanova, lost to Georgetown in the conference tournament. It'll be tough sledding for them. They go up against Utah State. Question marks all over who to pick for in that matchup. Utah State, representative of the Mountain West, winning the Mountain West Tournament Championship yesterday. I have no clue who to pick for that one, honestly. Villanova went 0-4 against UConn and St. John's in conference play. Thursday, 5 versus 12, Wisconsin. They get the 5. They've been playing some excellent basketball as of late for them. They went to Michigan, won on the road at Michigan. Wisconsin going to take on a red-hot High Point team. 30-4 for High Point. High Point, second straight year in a row, back in the bracket. Last year they faced Purdue, lost to Purdue. But High Point winning their conference, back in the tournament. That's out in Portland, Oregon on Thursday. It's been a tough bracket so far. 4 seed, Arkansas. Man, there's some really good teams in this bracket facing some really good teams. And then there's some really bad teams facing some really bad teams in the brackets. Hawaii. Congratulations to Hawaii winning their conference tournaments. It's been a while for them. They face Arkansas in the first round. 6 seed, BYU. They've been the 6th seed for a while. NBA level talent on this team, led by A.J. DeBonta, putting up 25 points per game for the projected number 1 pick from Brockton, Mass. Out in Portland, Oregon, taking on a play-in game winner, Texas or NC State. Play-in game between those two teams, an 11 seed. It's going to be a Tuesday night play-in game between the Longhorns and the Wolfpack. Thursday, the 3 seed out in Portland, Oregon. Gonzaga playing games out in the Pacific Northwest. Zags get a 3 seed, and they'll take on a 14 seed. It's going to be Kennesaw State. That's a brutal trip from Georgia. Miami of Florida. So this is Florida, Miami of Florida. Takes on Mizzou. Mizzou gets a 10. Purdue up to the 2 seed. So Purdue is where they stole Michigan State's seed line. So get that now. So yeah, that makes sense now. So Purdue jumps from a 3 to a 2, winning the Big Ten Tournament Championship. They're on St. Louis on Friday. Congratulations to Queens. Only time that they'll be in the bracket, as Queens University of North Carolina, they are merging with Elon at the end of this school year for Queens. So unless they do keep their athletics program under their school name separately as Queens, from what I heard, they're merging with Elon. So that's what we got. Top right corner of the bracket. Arizona, LIU. Arizona, pretty good draw to the Sweet 16 for them. Not so much to the Elite 8, though. It's going to be a tough matchup in the Sweet 16, but that's a pretty good first weekend draw for Arizona. Taking on Villanova, Utah State. Utah State out in the Mountain West hasn't really played that tough of a schedule. Villanova hasn't really played a tough schedule either this season, and they struggled against both St. John's and UConn in the conference, plus a loss to Georgetown in their conference quarters. And then, yeah, Wisconsin, Arkansas, that should be absolute cinema. Both teams playing some great basketball next weekend. BYU going to face a play-in game winner, Texas or NC State, both in the cut line. Gonzaga, Kennesaw State. Miami, Mizzou, Purdue against Queens. Some interesting games in this category. Yeah, Wisconsin's really underrated. Both of those teams I talked about are just so dangerous between Wisconsin and Arkansas. Wisconsin, when on the road, they beat Michigan in the regular season. Arkansas is playing out of their minds right now. I don't know how you can go against and pick against Darius Acuff Jr. What Arkansas is doing right now. They're 10-2 in their last 12. Wisconsin has been playing some great basketball too. It's unfortunate that they have to see one another that early on in the bracket, because there's teams there's some great matchups with two teams that are well deserving to make it deep in the tournament to at least the Elite Eight, and then there's some teams that's like, how are these teams put together against one another? These two teams are struggling with each other, and that they find each other in this tournament field. Yeah, some of these matchups, unfortunately, it's tough so far, this top half of the bracket. Really tough to predict some of these games once you get further down on the line off the bracket. It's like that Villanova Utah State. I mean, like, it's gonna be a kind of an odd game there. That's what we got so far. Top of the bracket. If you're doing the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Yeah, both 5 seeds. Really underrated. I'm stunned that St. John's didn't get moved up a seed line. Yeah, BYU. They're suffering a major key player that's injured. Richie Saunders, who's an 18 points per game player. So it's basically AJ DeBonsa and Robert Wright who's carrying that team. So they have 2 guys who's consistent double-figure scores, and then they don't really have much scoring punch after that. But they put up a ton of points because DeBonsa just goes off. Yeah, UCLA's fared really well in the postseason previous years. Yeah, BYU went like 500 in their conference. They got a 6 seed. Like, they had the same conference record as West Virginia. Kentucky's yet to be picked so far. Yeah, that's a tough matchup for the Cards. South Florida's won 11 straight in a row. I like Wisconsin in that matchup just based on overall strength of schedule, the teams that they faced for Wisconsin. So I like Wisconsin over a High Point. High Point's an elite shooting team, but like usually like bigger programs usually key in on those shooters and make it tough and just lock down those sharpshooters. It's a big difference between like mid-major size and then Power 5 size. Like Power 5, you're shooting over 7-footers and bigger guards, whereas like mid-majors, you got guys that are like playing as like 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" for backcourt players, or like 6'1", 6'2", whereas like the center for the team at the mid-major level might be like 6'8", 6'9". A lot of teams still awaiting their names to be called. St. Louis, Tennessee State, Nebraska, Vandy showed up on the screen just a moment ago, waiting for their teams to be called. And Michigan dropped the game today against Purdue. That dropped them to the overall 3rd overall number 1 seed in the bracket. Michigan at the Midwest region, top right or bottom right corner of the bracket. They're playing out in Buffalo. They're going to face a play-in game winner, UMBC. Remember that name. Upset Virginia as a 1 seed, or Howard, the MEAC tournament champion, for Washington, D.C. That's out in Buffalo. Thursday, Georgia. Football game going on if it is Michigan and Georgia in round 2. Georgia, the 8 seed, going to face the 9 seed. That is St. Louis. The Billikens get in the brackets. Excellent season for St. Louis with their win-to-loss total for the Billikens this season. And they get a number 9 seed for SLU. They're out in Buffalo, 28-5 for their record, taking on Georgia in the opening round action. 5 seed goes to Texas Tech. Texas Tech a 5. Key player J.T. Toppin, leading scorer, leading rebounder, is injured. They've been struggling on the glass mightily without him. They got their hands full with a 12 seed in this matchup. Akron, who had an excellent regular season record at 29-5. The MAC tournament champions out in Tampa going to take on Texas Tech on Friday. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Akron faced Arizona last year in the bracket, and they brought back most of their teams. So they're back in the tournament once again. A lot of chaos could happen in this region. All offense, 0 defense for the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Simply going to outscore opponents whenever they face them. That is the motto. Number 4 seed for the Roll Tide, taking on Hofstra in the opening round action. Hofstra out in Long Island, New York. Into the bracket back in COVID. They were on track to make it to the tournament. Unfortunately, got that stripped away from them during the COVID season. They get a 13 seed out of the Colonial. 6 versus 11 matchup. Tennessee. Tennessee gets the 6. Playing out in Philadelphia, going to face an 11 seed, and that's going to be a play-in game. Miami, Ohio. Redhawks get in the bracket as they're going to face SMU in the play-in game. 31-1 in the bracket in the play-in rounds. They're going to get their first Power 5 opportunity of the season going up against SMU from the ACC. Virginia. Virginia played Duke close yesterday. 3 seed for them. Taking on the 14. That is Wright State from the Horizon. It's actually not too bad of a trip for Wright State for that game. Kentucky. Kentucky gets the 7. They're going to face Santa Clara. Congrats to Santa Clara. WCC going to get 3 bids in this tournament. Santa Clara been so close last couple seasons, unable to break through and finally getting themselves back into the field. It's a good change of scenery to see a different team in the field. We saw San Francisco a couple years back take on Murray State in the first round matchup, a 10 versus 7. Iowa State. Cyclones at 27-7. They whipped Arizona State in their first round matchup. Tennessee State out of the OVC. Name to know here for Tennessee State's the D3 transfer. Leading scorer in the conference, Aaron Krumra. He's from Worcester, Massachusetts. Started off his collegiate career back in 2021 for Nichols out of the conference in New England. Formerly the Commonwealth Coast Conference. Then transferred to the MASCAC for Worcester State. Hometown team played Worcester State. Put up a big game, season opener against Wheaton, Mass. In the 2022 opener. I was on the call for that one when Aaron Krumra went off. And glad to see that the scouts there saw that he had Division I playing talent for Aaron Krumra. And then he won MASCAC Player of the Year at Worcester State, Conference Player of the Year, and then eventually transfers to Tennessee State, and then becomes the top scorer this season in the Ohio Valley Conference, and leads his team to the first March Madness bid for Tennessee State since 1993. So good story right there for Tennessee State. Really tough matchup, though, going against Iowa State in that first round matchup. So, bottom right bracket looks like this. Michigan, 1 seed, facing UMBC Howard. And then Georgia St. Louis, 8-9 matchup. Texas Tech, Akron, Alabama, Hofstra. Tennessee, playing game winner, Miami, Ohio, makes in the tournament, 31-1. And they get into the playing game, face SMU. So Virginia gets the 3 seed against Wright State. Kentucky, Santa Clara. Should be an interesting matchup. Kentucky only 2-4 in their last 6 coming in. So they've been a seesaw lately for Kentucky. Santa Clara, they're holding on to wins against St. Mary's for them. So what helped out? They beat St. Mary's in the conference tournament, and then they beat St. Mary's again in the regular season. So they posted 2 victories against St. Mary's, and both of those wins helped them get into the field. Yeah, Tennessee State does not play in a good conference. I would not bet against Iowa State. Iowa State has been a consistent top-tier seed year after year after year, like a 2-3 seed most years consistently. And they have a bunch of seniors on their team. Yeah, I would not bet against Iowa State. They're a team that could go really, really far in this field for them. They have like scrappy guys too, year after year. Those guys are tough. Those teams are built on toughness for them. And they took Arizona right down to the wire. So, just going to flip it back up to the top. This is what we had so far. This was the top of the bracket where Duke got the overall number 1 seed. So, Duke in the top left corner of the bracket. Arizona was the top right. And then we just got through the bottom. So, bottom right region out in the Midwest where Michigan got the third 1 seed. It's difficult to win 31 games outright to win your regular season. More so 28 for them. For Miami of Ohio, they're 28-1. Let's not say they're 31-1 unless we want to count the wins against Indiana State University East, Milligan, and then there was a Christian school that they beat. All 3 of those wins were against NAIA programs, so NAIA Division III, they don't count those wins on their resume against Division I opponents. They don't go on the overall record, and neither, in my opinion, we shouldn't count those games either. Those should just go down as exhibition. Like, there's no way that those should even be games that count towards a record. Unless you lose the game, it should be noted upon. That's where it should be noted upon. Like Kansas State, a couple years ago, lost against Fort Hays State in NAIA program, then yeah, it should be noted upon, but those games should not count for Division I teams scheduling 3 non-division opponents during the season. Final 1 seed, that's Florida. Florida's playing in their home state. First round matchup out in Tampa. They face the 16. That's Prairie View A&M. Or Lehigh. Clemson, and then Iowa. Just going to make that shorter. Prairie View A&M, Lehigh, the 16 playing. Vandy. They get the 5 seed. Vanderbilt, a 5 seed. Out in Oklahoma City, Thursday for them. McNeese. McNeese last year upset Clemson, but they don't have Will Wade anymore as their head coach. Nebraska gets a 4 seed. That's the exact matchup you want for Vandy to make a run. To get that 4 seed. That is a perfect matchup for Vandy to make a run. Nebraska started off a perfect 20-0. They're 6-6 in their last 12. Vandy been on a heater. Troy's going to have a shot at Nebraska. Troy beat San Diego State, who's going to be one of the top seeds in the NIT. North Carolina, 6 seed. Tar Heels out in Greenville, South Carolina. They'll face the 11. This is on Thursday. That's going to be VCU, A-10 tournament champions. VCU usually slots in as an 11 or 12 every year. 3 seed in this bracket, out in the bottom left corner. Illinois. Fighting Illini get the 3 seed. They're going to take on Penn. Penn with a stunner today. They upset Yale. Yale had just 5 losses going into that game, too. And they had some big wins against teams who are mid-majors in the field, too. That was upsetting for Yale to lose that game. Tough one for the 1 seed in the Ivy to go down like that. But Fran McCaffrey back in the bracket. He's now the head coach for Penn. Former Iowa Hawkeyes head coach. St. Mary's. They get the 7. Going to come down to the final bubble team in the bracket. That is A&M. Texas A&M as the 10 seed. That should be a gritty, grinded defensive battle. 2 physical teams wearing out each other. Houston. We saw that a couple years ago. Houston faced A&M in round 2. A&M gave Houston a run for his money in an overtime game. Houston, a 2 seed. The final team of the bracket goes out to the Vandals. Idaho, conference champion from the Big Sky, rounds out the entire field of 68. So that is what we got here for this tournament field. So Auburn did not make it. No Auburn. Let's see, Lunardi had A&M, NC State, Santa Clara, UCF, Mizzou, Miami, Ohio, SMU, and Texas. You got everybody correct. Unfortunately, Oklahoma's not in either. Yeah, Oklahoma had to be the first team out. And then first team out of the bracket, Oklahoma, according to Lunardi, Auburn, San Diego State, New Mexico. Yeah, I think that's where there's a fine line, is after Oklahoma and Auburn, San Diego State, New Mexico, just too many losses there against mid opponents for those 2. And then Indiana, Stanford, Cincinnati, Seton Hall, all those teams missed the cut as well. Yeah, wacky bracket indeed. It's a lot of tough matchups. It's like the teams that's red hot are going up against one another, so it's 50-50 either way. And then there's teams that's both of them are stuck in mud, struggling recently, and those 2 teams get paired up against one another. Texas Tech's a 5 seed, so Texas Tech takes on Akron first round. SEC gets the most bids in the tournament, 10 bids for the SEC. Big 10 with 9, ACC Big 12 with 8. Rough year for the Big East, just 3 between St. John's, UConn, Villanova. Last 4 in were NC State, Texas, SMU, Miami, Ohio. And then first 4 outs, Oklahoma, Auburn, San Diego State, Indiana. So those were the first 4 teams that missed the cut on the brackets. Sooners They started off 11-12, tried to claw their way back down the stretch, and it seems like it's deja vu all over again for Oklahoma, unfortunately, where they just missed the cut as the first team out. So unfortunately, Oklahoma, they would have been in the bracket if Miami, Ohio would have been able to win their conference tournaments. That's the only bid stealer we got this year was Akron out of the MAC. And the writing was on the wall. Like, everybody could tell that Miami, Ohio was going to lose eventually once they got to their conference tournaments. They went 31-0 in the regular season, and then they were actually the underdog behind Akron on the betting spread for the favorites, number 2 favorite behind Akron to win their conference tournament. Yeah, Ole Miss would have had to win the SEC for them. They were a 15 seed in their conference, but yeah, their regular season record was below 500, unfortunately for Ole Miss. But yeah, they almost pulled off upsets after upsets. They won 3 games in 3 straight days, but then just ran into Arkansas. Yeah, they were close. So close for Ole Miss. Ole Miss would have been like the 2021 version of Georgetown that had, or Oregon State was in that bracket that year. Yeah, there were 2 teams with like terrible records in 2021 that won their conference tournament as like low-end seeds, Georgetown and Oregon State. Oregon State won the Pac-12 that year out of nowhere, and then Oregon State went to the Elite Eight. Yeah, Auburn's going to be in the NIT. That's if they even accept the invite. Clemson, their pathway to the Elite Eight, I think it's going to be tough for them. Really difficult. Like, they would get Florida round 2, and then even if they do somehow stun Florida, Vanderbilt has been coming on strong. Vandy's been really strong. Could set up Florida Vandy potentially in the Sweet 16. Could have 2 SEC opponents possibly face each other. Yeah, that's too bad for Oklahoma. They have Nigel Pack on their team, and he was one of the key players in the Miami team that went to the Final Four a few years ago. Honestly, would not be shocked, Caden, if Ohio State upsets Duke. I think it's going to... If you remember that game from a few years back, it was Arizona who was the 1 seed. They faced TCU in round 2 with Eddie Lampkin, and TCU forced overtime, and Arizona had Benedict Mathurin on that team. I think we could get vibes of that type of game, Duke against Ohio State in the second round. Like, that... Like, Duke's playing against a team that's playing top 10 basketball in the last month. Like, that's a tough matchup for Duke. Ohio State should have not been an 8 seed. They should have been a 7. Like, Ohio State came climbing up the bracket for the last month. And so did TCU. Yeah, TCU. Like, both of those teams are out of the teams that's facing either 1 or 2. Those 2 teams have been playing big-time basketball. So I would not roll out TCU, because both those teams have played excellent basketball as of late. Like, Ohio State, like, they're for real. They played a close game against Michigan in their conference tournament. But honestly, would not shock me if that is an upset there, because Ohio State's not the typical 8 seed. And then TCU is also not really a typical 9 seed, though TCU did lose to Kansas, so that's a little bit head-scratching. Because Kansas hadn't been playing that well as of late coming into the bracket. Kansas won one, then lost one in their conference tournaments. Probably good to win a game. They've had a tough time making it to the second round for Kansas. Just a seesaw lately for them. They're a 4 seed. St. John's, in my opinion, is underseeded. Should have gone to the 4 for St. John's. They won 18-2 in their conference. The Big East has not looked good this year. Louisville, South Florida. That's going to be an interesting game. Poor Louisville last year. They get shafted by the bracket committee, got an 8 seed instead of a 6. This year they get the seed they deserve, a 6 seed. But for them, I mean, I'd be more confident to pick Louisville over, Texas NC State. They wouldn't be able to play NC State in round 1 because that's a conference opponent. Or, yeah, for sure I'd be confident picking Louisville over VCU or Miami, Ohio. Wouldn't have been able to face SMU either because they're a conference opponent, but that's the toughest matchup, in my opinion, as an 11. South Florida has been playing some tremendous basketball that not a whole lot of people are really paying attention to. They've won 11 straight games in a row for South Florida. They spread the ball around. They get to the free throw line more than anybody else in the country. They put you in some big-time foul trouble, and they put points on the board. They have a top 15 pace of play offense in all of college basketball. So that's going to be a good matchup right there, that 6-11 matchup. Either can go any way. So unfortunately, yeah, that's the worst 11 seed you could face. South Florida looking solid as an 11. Michigan State, North Dakota State. I mean, do not bet on Tom Izzo. Whatever you do in the month of March, just don't do it, especially with a team from the Summit League. That's a generous matchup there for Michigan State. They bounced down from a 2 to a 3. Purdue got the 2 and jumped up, winning the tournament championship from a 3 to a 2. So Michigan State bounced down from a 2 to a 3. And because of that, Michigan State gets a really generous first-round matchup taking on North Dakota State. UCLA, UCF, that's a tale between two teams trending in opposite directions from one another. UCLA playing some amazing basketball as of late, working their way up to a top 10 team in efficiency rankings since the start of March. And then UCF has completely crumbled upon itself for the last month of the season for them. And there were questions whether it will be enough to get into the bracket for UCF. It was. And yeah, UCF has their hands full in that matchup against UCLA. UConn Furman. UConn having a tough time lately. Lost against Marquette last week in the regular season finale, and then lost by 20 in the conference championship against St. John's. They get Furman, who is a 6 seed in the Southern, in their first round matchup, but yeah, they got their hands full against UCLA. UCLA could pose a serious threat to UConn. So UCLA could really pose a serious threat to UConn in that 7-2 matchup. Arizona, LIU. That's a tough matchup for LIU. That's probably going to be the biggest blowout in the tournament, in my opinion. LIU is probably going to lose by 40. And NEC usually, well, FDU pulled off an upset, but NEC teams in general, besides the FDU upset over Purdue, they usually don't do too well in the bracket, and they get crushed by like 30, 40 plus points. So yeah, that's going to be a blowout. That game is on the West Coast, I believe San Diego, and LIU is going to get demolished. Arizona, top to bottom, looks like an incredible team this year. Villanova, Utah State. I said that game's drawing question marks for me because it honestly is. Utah State plays in the Mountain West, so they don't have like many opportunities against like high-end quality opponents. Whereas Villanova, the Big East was terrible this year. I'm going to bring up these two teams right now and just look at them. So Utah State, wow, Utah State is the slight favorite. Kind of shocked. I would think that Villanova, since they have played against those opponents in the non-conference slate that with quality teams that they would be the better seed. See, Villanova beat Wisconsin in overtime in the non-conference slate. That's a great win. Other than that, they don't have any signature wins. St. John's loss, UConn loss, UConn loss, St. John's loss, Georgetown loss. They just can't win against signature opponents. Best win against Wisconsin. If they didn't beat Wisconsin, then they would be shaking in their boots right now. They'd probably be back as like a 10 seed or potentially a play-in team for Villanova based on the lack of signature victories. They took care of business of everybody else besides a loss to Creighton in the conference, and then the 4 other losses were losing twice to UConn, losing twice to St. John's, and then the Georgetown loss in the tournament. Yeah, Utah State lost by 13 to South Florida. They beat VCU by 3. This is their first matchup against a major conference school. But it's not like the Big East is like this big-time power conference anymore this season. Utah State lost to Grand Canyon. Lost to UNLV twice. Ugh. Yeah, I don't think I can pick Utah State after seeing that they lost to UNLV twice in the regular season. Then in the conference tournament, they beat them by 20. Lost to San Diego State by 17. Lost to Nevada. Mountain West has usually been shaky in years past. Wisconsin, High Point, Arkansas, Hawaii. Grab the popcorn for round 2 if that happens. Wisconsin, Arkansas. That's a tremendous matchup. What's good, Naija player? Welcome in. Thanks for joining in. Really appreciate everybody for being a part of the stream. We got Baby Illinois, Philip the Script, Bo Swindle on the channel. Dennis, thanks for joining in. We got Richard on the stream. Type in the chat who you guys are rooting for to win the tournament out here, or who you guys are a fan of representing. Feel free to let us know out on the channel. Gonna end this poll right now. Wow, we got over 1K out here. You guys the real legends on the stream, and large majority got it correct. 53% predicted only Miami, Ohio would get selected. Exactly what happened. And both teams are at 27%. Auburn not included. They were the second team left outside the bracket after Oklahoma, which did not make the cut. BYU against the playing game winner Texas NC State. Yeah, BYU's been struggling. I'm stunned that they got a 6 seed. So they're 9-9 in the conference. They have the same conference record as West Virginia. They started off the season strong, and then second half of the year, Richie Saunders got injured, and they've been struggling. They did get momentum back though in the conference tournament, but I'm concerned at a lack of signature wins for them as of late. Like they put up over 100 against K-State in the conference tournaments. Like the talent is there for sure, and it might be okay. It's going to be potentially BYU, Texas, or NC State. Yeah, they for sure got the talent, but losing Saunders because they had 3 guys scoring in double figures. That's going to be tough depending on if they're going to advance far. They're going to have to dial up and key in defensively because they've been struggling a ton defensively for them. They're basically like a one-sided offensive team for them, relying on DeBonsa and Wright to do a large bulk of the scoring. Yeah, back to the left side. Kansas, Cal Baptist. Kansas is another team that's been struggling. I would not bet on Bill Self losing round 1. I mean, anything is possible. This game's actually in California. So, I mean, anything is possible. Cal Baptist, 6 straight games they've won. Wow, they started off 7-0 for them. They beat UC Irvine. They beat Oregon State, which went to the WCC semis. but they're 0-3 against Power 5 schools. So Cal Baptist lost to Colorado by 8. Lost to BYU by 31. That was with a fully healthy BYU squad. And then lost to Utah by 6. Utah went 10-22. Yeah, Cal Baptist lost to the worst Big 12 team by 6. I mean, anything is possible. I just don't see Bill Self in Kansas losing that early in the tournament. But they did lose against Arizona State, which fired their head coach. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me if Cal Baptist picks up the upset. St. John's, Northern Iowa, that's going to be a rock fight. First to 50. Northern Iowa leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game. But their offensive unit is just a grind. I just don't think they have enough offensively for them to contend with St. John's. Duke's got their handful at the top left corner region. They got their work cut out. Like, if they win the tournament, they're going to go down as like one of the best teams to ever win the tournament based on that group of teams that they get in the first weekends. I mean, that's one heck of a draw, getting either Ohio State or TCU, and then probably St. John's. Gonzaga takes on Kennesaw. I would not bet on Mark Few, round 1. Zags always pick up victories in round 1. Miami-Mizzou, that's going to be interesting. Miami's been playing some pretty good ball as of late for them. And then Purdue takes on Queens. Congrats out to Queens. Queens makes the bracket first time ever in school history. Slots in as the number 62 team in the tournament. So one of the bottom at-large, or one of the bottom automatic bids for them. Yeah, Kentucky's been up and down, up and down. Kentucky, Santa Clara. That's at the bottom right corner. I just flipped it over to the bottom part of the bracket. See, Santa Clara, unfortunately, with mid-major schools, they don't really get that much for opportunities against Power 5 opponents. So it's tough to tell. Santa Clara beat Xavier 87-68. That was an impressive road win at Xavier. That's a Big East school that they won against. Xavier did not have a good season, though. Lost to St. Louis by 1. Beat Minnesota. Minnesota, not exactly a Big Ten basketball powerhouse. And then losses to Arizona State and New Mexico, 98-71, and then lost to Loyola Chicago. Yeah, that's a head-scratching one there for Santa Clara. They had a quad 4 loss. I'll go and just see it as a blip. They did face the Zags 3 times. They lost all 3 times to the Zags. Lost by 12, lost by 8, lost by 11. And they beat St. Mary's twice. Once in the regular season, split the regular season against St. Mary's, and then they won in the conference semis against St. Mary's. That was huge. That win got them in the bracket. If Santa Clara didn't win that game, they would not be here in the bracket. Yeah, it's kind of odd to see a 7 seed with 13 losses. Lost to Louisville for Kentucky. Got clobbered against Michigan State. Lost against UNC. Got destroyed by Gonzaga, 94-59. Gee. They beat St. John's. And that St. John's win was huge. They beat Arkansas. They beat Tennessee twice. And then all of a sudden, they've completely crumbled second half of the year for Kentucky. 3-6 in their last 9 going into the tournament. Or 4-6 in their last 10 for Kentucky. That win against Vandy helping out a ton on February 28th. And Kentucky did beat Mizzou in the conference tournament. Mizzou 20-12. Wow, that's concerning. When you see good thing for them that was an early season game. They beat SEMO by 5. Second game of the season, though. So, I mean, I don't really judge that. A lot of improvement since then. They did lose to Notre Dame, though, in the second month. Wow, lost against Ole Miss. Yeah, they were stumbling down the stretch for Mizzou. 3 straight losses coming in. Tennessee, they beat Tennessee. I mean, this SEC has been all over the place this year. So many close games in the SEC, just teams cannibalizing each other in the conference. Holy smokes. Mizzou got shredded against Illinois 91-48. Yeah, they got Miami. I mean, that's a toss-up. Miami's been, based on how Miami's played fairly well lately. Yeah, 4-2 in their last 6. Lost to Louisville, beat Louisville second time around. Got crushed against Virginia. Virginia really gave Duke something to run for its money. Miami really doesn't have any bad losses. Losses to Virginia, Louisville, Virginia again, Cal by 1. That's the worst loss, besides Florida State by 2. Clemson, BYU, Florida. I mean, those aren't terrible losses. The two teams I mentioned that they lost in one-possession games were teams just outside the bubble. Cal and Florida State, which Florida State gave Duke a run for its money in that conference tournament, too. Yeah, that's an interesting matchup. UNC has their key freshman is injured, and VCU. A lot of people have talked in the past about VCU being a dark horse team. Fran McCaffrey has brought Iowa to the tournament multiple times. He's the new head coach for Penn. So they take on Illinois. So interesting note there is that McCaffrey, who used to coach the Hawkeyes at Iowa, now coaching for Penn, taking on a Big Ten program with Illinois in that first round. St. Mary's, Texas A&M should be quite a battle too. That's going to be a physical game. Houston, Idaho. Usually the Big Sky doesn't fare well in these tournaments. Houston usually gets that draw too. They usually are the team that takes on another team like Montana, whoever represents the Big Sky, and yeah, that matchup is not close. It's usually like 80-40. So that could be a massive blowout in the first rounds. Michigan going up against the Cinderella team from 2018 UMBC. Playing game winner against Howard. Georgia, St. Louis could feature a college football type game there. Round 2, Michigan, Georgia, possibly St. Louis. Struggling down the stretch for them, 4-4 in their last 8 for SLU. They had an excellent season, then ran into Rhode Island a few weeks ago, lost at URI. That it's more of an indication of a tough conference schedule too for them, as they're in the A10. They're in the middle of America for St. Louis. I don't like the whole setup for some of these teams, like Creighton's in the Big East, and then over in the Big Ten, it's It's a mess with travel, where you have like Oregon, USC, UCLA flying out to play Penn State, Rutgers. I mean, that's a gauntlet. Like, you got 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids thrown into the fire, traveling all the way across the country to play road games. Cal Stanford traveling to UNC and Duke. That's what it's gone into right now. Texas Tech, Akron. Should be a sneaky game. Alabama, Hofstra. Alabama faced Charleston a couple years back in the tournament. That was a high-scoring game. UNC Wilmington was the overwhelming favorite in the Colonial to win the conference tournament, and they got upset in their first round matchup. Yeah, Hofstra has 10 losses. That should actually be a interesting game. Hofstra ranks inside the top 30 in rebounds per game for them. Alabama struggled with rebounding. This Hofstra team, they play anybody like wordy. Lost to UCF by 4. It's not a terrible loss on the road by 4 at UCF. Beat Pittsburgh. They got a Power 5 win at Pitt. Beat Syracuse by 1. Yeah, I would not bet against Nate Oates and Alabama. Honestly, it would not shock me, though, if Hofstra somehow pulls off the upset. I mean, those are low-end ACC teams. Yeah, so they have 2 wins against bottom-of-the-pack ACC teams, Syracuse and Pitt. That's something noteworthy, though, when you look to like pick upset teams. If they have wins over Power 5 schools already, they're out for blood in the bracket. Yeah, McNeese State is a 12. Taking on Vandy. McNeese State upset Clemson last year. That was not a good game offensively for Clemson. McNeese with an excellent record, 28-5. Oof. First 2 out of 3 games that they began their season. Champion Christian College of Biblical Studies. Yikes. They really went and put together the schedule there for McNeese. Lost to Santa Clara by 12. McNeese lost to Incarnate Word. And their only Power 5 game was at Michigan. They lost 112-71 at Michigan. They did beat GW by 6. GW almost upset St. Louis. Yeah, they've won a bunch of games going into the tournament. Beat Stephen F. Austin in their conference championship. 10 straight games for McNeese. McNeese had to win their conference championship by winning a triple overtime game against UT Rio Grande Valley. Wow, McNeese went they traveled to play URI. They beat URI on the road in Kingston. St. Louis had lost to URI. Clemson, Iowa should be an interesting one. That 8-9 matchup. That's like a toss-up. One of the more tougher ones to predict. Nebraska, Troy. Nebraska all-time 0-8 in the bracket. Only Power 5 team to never win a NCAA tournament game. Gonna see what Troy slots in. Wow, this whole Sun Belt was mid. There's a bunch of teams with an 11-7 record in the Sun Belt. Troy's schedule: Pensacola Christian College, LaGrange, Yikes. West Georgia, double overtime loss. West Georgia is a new team to D1. Lost to Cal State Northridge, Loyola Marymount. Beat San Diego State in double overtime. Then the next day, or next game, they lost to USC at USC in triple overtime. It's just weird. Huh. 4-game winning streak for Troy. They've had some major issues on the road. They've lost their last 3 of 4 road games. But they won 2 straight neutral games for them. Yes, Illinois is in. They are a 3 seed. And interesting nugget here, they take on Fran McCaffrey and the UPenn Quakers. So Fran McCaffrey now the new head coach for Penn in his first season. They upset Yale this morning, and they get to the tournament. And then St. Louis. So that's the top half of the bracket. St. Louis is in the bottom. So St. Louis is in the bottom with Georgia as a 9 seed. Yep, so St. Louis is also in. They're in the 8-9 matchup as a 9 seed against Georgia. And this is the top half of the brackets. All right, feel free to join the Behind Your Basketball Bracket Challenge group. That link is pinned to the chat. All are welcome to join, be a part of this year's Bracket Challenge group. Hoping to stream some of the March Madness games coming up. Probably a few games here or there on Thursday and Friday. Probably not going to be able to do much this weekend or the following weekend because I do have a bunch of games that I'm covering for broadcast myself that I got for volleyball, lacrosse, and baseball. But I'm also hoping to cover the final 4 games at night on Saturday. I believe that's April 3rd. Or April 4th, and then the national championship game on the Monday night. I believe that's April 6th. But hoping to cover some of the first round games, so feel free, ring the notification bell, be back on the channel. And I'm also planning to be back live tomorrow night covering Celtics against Suns. So if you'd like to join in, feel free to do so. I am supposed to be getting a pretty strong storm up here tomorrow night where I am. I'm from Massachusetts. We're actually in a tornado threat, like a 5% chance. So I'm hoping to cover Celtics Suns tomorrow night unless something drastic happens where I lose power and I'm unable to do so. In terms of teams from my area, I actually work with a couple of D1 colleges on their broadcast team. So I work with Brown, I work with Stonehill, and also Bryant. So yeah, it's unfortunately those teams not in, but some really good opportunities over there. And PC, it was tough for them this season. They ended up firing their head coach last week for them. They got just a roller coaster of a whole thing going on over there at PC with their whole basketball program without Kim English anymore. So hopefully better luck for them in the future. But yeah, that was a tough year. Last season, a tough season as well. And, yeah, hopefully better years to come out there. But, yeah, not really much towards my area for teams. Basically just UConn. Because I think somebody asked me today who's participating in the tournament from my area. We had some teams possibly, but Boston University lost in the Patriot League Championship. And Merrimack had the Metro Atlantic Conference slip away from their hands and lost to Siena as the 1 seed. So there were a couple of teams that could have gotten in, but unfortunately unable to close down. It's only UConn that's in, representing New England. That's it. The 2 other closest teams to where I am are Siena in Albany, and just outside Albany, and St. John's in Queens, and then Hofstra from Long Island. So those are the teams that's closest to where I am. UConn's around like an hour and 15 away from where I am. So, yeah, not really much in terms of teams representing my region out here. Yeah, URI in the women's tournament. Yeah, big things happening over there with their program at URI for their women's program. So that's something to look forward to. But gonna wrap up here. Really appreciate you guys for joining in. And feel free, join the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group. Link pinned to the chat. And also, I just scheduled a video out as well. So that video should be out for the Bracket Challenge group. Feel free to click that link, create an ESPN account, and then click join a group to be a part of this year's Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Tournament Challenge. Before you go, make sure to smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe if you guys enjoyed today's stream, the bracket reveal, and I'll do it once again. That's the top half of the brackets, and this is the bottom half of the brackets if this is your first time coming in seeing the bracket for today. Thanks all for joining in, everybody, and we will close out to the channel members. All channel members get a shout out at the end of each and every single one of my live streams. We have Jason, John, Michael, Bradley, Joe, Lonely Satellite, Warren, Denaja Player, Norma, Kelly, Ogie, Russell, Rye Dog, Astros Fan for Life, Owl on the Prowl, I Am Ghost, Ian, Edith, and SGA Sports Talk. Thanks all for joining in. Happy bracketing, and hopefully I'll see you guys either tomorrow night for Celtics Suns, hopefully, or Thursday for the first round matchup, depending on what the schedules come out. Be released on Thursday once that does come out. Thanks all for joining in, everybody. Happy bracketing, and we get a bracket. This year's tournament, it is out now, and make sure to fill it out. Join the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night here, folks.